Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode in our city of Brookshore. We're 11 episodes in now, 10 episodes of building, but I thought it was a good time, better time than any, to have a look at how far we've come. Let's have a view of the builds, have a chat, see how far Brookshore's holding up, and of course talk about future plans. If we have got time, might drop a few assets down just to kind of see, you know, how far we can get, but there's no certain plan to this episode. It's just a matter of reviewing things and seeing how far we've come. We've reached quite a few areas of the map so far, so it's really good to see. We've got plenty more to cover, so let's dive in. So here we are, this is Thornton. This was the first village, one of the first villages that we placed down. So we're just sort of flying over the high street, a little town centre here with our churchyard to the left and community park. It's a bit of a sleepy town, a bit of a historic town, and I think it's nice. I think it works well for this part of Brookshore. We've got our industry, agricultural industry, and this was obviously a key player back in the day, but it's become kind of outgrown by its peers over there. But let's have a look how it's doing. So if we take a look at our traffic situation, we're around about 78, which I don't think is too bad. Majority of it's pretty much being held up on this bit, as you expect. It's our only way into the city at the moment. And we haven't got any true hierarchy. We've just got this one road that's sort of pretty much getting you from Coleridge all the way over to Victoria and East Victoria over here. There's no hierarchy. There was no plans put in place for road usage. A time frame didn't have automobiles, so we didn't really have the need for it. It was just a matter of just throwing down these these small little winding roads and branching off things. But obviously going forward, this is going to come more into play. So we've got some ideas how we're going to go tackle this and get our traffic down. But for now, I think we look over in Thornton. There's not a lot of traffic really about. I mean, there's only a little bit of industry over here. It's probably dropping into the Hickory Farm over here. So in terms of traffic, Thornton's doing all right. So here in Thornton, we've got our little market square on the corner. We've got our churchyard. We've got our local greenery area. And it does really give me kind of small town England, little village vibes around here. You can imagine there would be perhaps like an old country pub here or something like that. But obviously we're working with vanilla. But we've got a historic police station. And I was just having a quick glance over the services, and we don't actually have a fire station over here. So why don't we pop one just on the corner, and that will match our police station. So we've got a fire station, we've got a police station. Now, one criticism I can say about my build so far is there's not a lot of greenery. And I know a lot of the time we are placing down lots of heavy, sort of pollutive industry, but you would think that, especially out in the countryside around these sort of smaller towns, there would be plenty more trees. And trees really do make the build just feel a little bit more realistic and just come alive. So let's just plot a few trees down. I think you'll agree that's probably... It looks a lot nicer now. It feels a bit more humane. I like these little small village houses with the red roofs. They just remind me of like little cottages, things like that. So yeah, and we've got some more built up area over here. But one thing we don't also have is we don't have a community school or an elementary school. So I'm thinking we'll put one down, we'll give it its own little road. Okay, so I've just done a little bit of work off camera. Thornton was really missing kind of elementary school and of course a little bit of park life area. So I've just put down some pathways, thrown a few more trees down, and I think just gives it a little bit more interest, especially from the sky. Got a bit more visual interest, and I think people probably start using these paths, little hiking paths, things like of that nature. One other thing I thought we could add over here, we've got a bit of a space, so I thought we're in the countryside, makes sense. Perhaps see like maybe a horse riding stable. I said there wouldn't be a lot of building, but I think this is just going to kind of really, I don't know, add a little bit more to Thornton. I don't think there's any harm with revisiting places and adding on. Yeah, that's really fleshed out the area with countryside. So awesome. Let's have a look at Myrtle over here. Myrtle Farms, Myrtle Industries. Occasionally it makes a loss, a profit. It's not doing hugely great over here, let's be honest, but we've not put a lot of time over to this place. So I've got an idea of a future build involving like the bakery and some of the other buildings, so I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. That's going to be coming up on another episode. Alright, So that will do Thornton for now. As you can see, it feels a lot more rural with these dirt roads, dirt paths. So yes, I'm happy with that. Let's have a look at Oak Hill. So this was our second town. Well, it was probably one of the first towns, might have been the first town that we developed first. I can't remember, it feels a few months ago now. But this is where we said kind of like our landing point would have been. It was meant to be like a small little medieval market town surrounded by hills, which we'll come to in a second. But we've got our mills on the side there, first bit of industry, our heavy industry, and of course we've got our hillside homes as well. I'm really pleased how this place turned out. It's the first time we've worked with terrain with our homes, and it just adds that little extra something. I don't know, something about it. We can see our church from sort of like a landmark point of view, and it would have been one of the first buildings. Of course, working with the terrain, it poses different characteristics, and you can really bring your cities to life. So in terms of residential, this is probably my favourite residential place. Things aren't doing too great in Alton Park. We've had no visitors. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because we've only got one gate. So I was kind of thinking perhaps we could have another gate on here. This seems to be the most logical place. So I'm just going to pop another gate down, and hopefully that will change things for going forward with the park. Hopefully now, by having this extra side gate, it encourages our Sims to look into the park. I know it's pretty basic, but it's a nice little bit of green space in a oh look, straight away we've got someone using it, so maybe that was the problem. So that's one thing's fixed. But on the whole, I think it's alright. Nothing's too dramatically wrong over here. Again, we could use a little bit of education. I don't like this building, so I think we'll take that and see what grows back. But on the whole, there's a few abandoned buildings that we can replace, but I think Oak Hill's turning out okay. We've got a little bit of space here, so I thought maybe we could perhaps put our school over in like a new neighbourhood over here. So I think I'm going to go for it. As I say, I haven't got a great structure to this episode, so it's just a matter of, I hope it's okay, I hope you're finding it enjoyable, looking back, kind of sort of slowing down the build, but gives us a chance to really take in what we've done. And as I say, these little tweaks will hopefully be beneficial in the long run. I'm not placing any residential down, so we are growing a little bit, which is good to see. Anyway, I think that's all do for this part of town. Let's have a look at our next build. Coleridge. Here it is. I feel a little bit sorry for this town. It's a little bit unloved, let's be honest. There's no services over here whatsoever, and it served the purpose of serving cedar ore in the earlier days, and since then it's kind of lost its appeal quite dramatically, and I think it needs bringing back to life. So let's be kind, let's give it some a few services over here and get the citizens a little bit more happier. This is our old part of town. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different pattern in terms of the layout of the streets, so let's pretty much put our services kind of in the old part of the town. So again, I think we'll use our historic buildings, partly because they actually give us a little bit more space. So let's put down a police station. I think we'll put our own little road back here with an elementary school, perhaps on this side. Yeah, and then we'll have our clinic facing out on the front. One thing I'm going to do, which might not be the nicest of decision for these guys, but I'm going to remove this building. I think I made a mistake when I first done this. I think it would make sense for us to put down a park in the middle of town. So that's what I'm going to do. One interesting thing is Crowley Street is actually getting no trucks, even though there's a road into our ore industry over here. There's actually getting no traffic on this road for trucks. So I think, as there's no industrial traffic, why don't we upgrade? Let's upgrade and make this road slightly less loud. All the gains that I've made so far with our residential has pretty much been eroded there, but I should have done this in the first place, so it is a mistake. But anyway, let's put down a park, and hopefully that can make up for things. Alright, so yeah, I've put down a park, and of course it gives us a little bit more zoning space, so let's fill that in. It's the only bit of zoning I will do, but I think that will make a difference. Look, people are already they're loving life. They're levelling up already, so that's only a good thing. Alright, so that's done. They're pretty satisfied over here. I think they've got some new buildings. One other thing that they would probably appreciate is a post office. So let's drop one of them in, and we'll drop one also over in Thornton. There we go. We got some demand, so it's growing back in. But that works well on the corner there. So this was our second build, not this specific spot here, but over by the terraced houses over there. This was a big population expansion. It's pretty much it is the most popular town. I would suggest maybe on par with Coleridge over there. But we've got these terraced houses by the working factories. So I was actually happy how this turned out. Shame there wasn't joined together, but you know, the principle's there and it looks pretty good to me. So you might be asking, how's things holding up? Well, it's a bit of good and bad. We've got a bit of low land value. We've got a nice population over here. We've got, 200 odd there in the high street. We've got 2,200 population, so it's a big town, but we've got a lot of abandonment. I think a lot of this is probably education and low land value, so that is something I need to really focus on. Going on view counts and interaction, you seem to enjoy this build. We had a bit of a detailing session and we've laid down our town centre, which is getting lots of people visiting. So that was good to see. I think that came together quite nicely, and it's a nice part of town. This quite actually very densely packed, which of course it would be, in time frame and this actual, town's kind of gathering pace. People want to move here, so there's not a lot of room for expansion. So a lot of this is going to be have to be redone as we advance through the time period. But on the whole, I think it's turned out pretty good. We've got a historic docks over here. That was one of the next ones. It all ties in. It gives our town a little bit of characteristics and a bit of a history to why things are here. One of the buildings that most pleases me is this one here. It's actually the pavilion, if I believe. Yeah, the pavilion. I kind of imagine it as this sort of a bit of a market. People getting their groceries, they're getting their clothes, they're getting, their household products. And as you see, it's quite popular. It's a busy part of town. And we've got this little fair out the front. These little carts, I do actually think they actually fit the year. It's so good. They just remind me of it. I don't know why. I like the fact that we've got our European buildings over here. They give it kind of like that presence of bustling shops and commercial as things sort of have grown. People are buying more goods, luxury goods. And of course we've got our high school. I think this is probably one of our only high schools. So yeah, we do need to invest in education. So for the next one, we focused on our trains. Of course, people will need to be getting around town. Places are expanding. People need to visit new places. So we put down our trains, which was pretty common for the time period. We've invested heavily into them. And on the whole, I think they're being utilised pretty well. If we look at the line status, we've got 303 passengers last week, and that's only going to grow. So we've got 2 vehicles on the route. Then we've got plenty of space in them. There is some people waiting over here. So yeah, that's okay. I don't need to decrease it. I think I'll just leave it as it is. But that was a fun build. That was interesting to kind of play down the tracks. I still don't understand fully how these train lines work, and how to separate the rails and the cargo lines and things like that. So it's all a bit of a learning curve. Of course, it would have been nice to have these as rail rather than the metro, but I didn't have them unlocked at the time. So I'm still kind of going back and forward on the idea whether I kind of move this back to being a train line. That may change. That may be something I'll do off camera. Land value's not too bad over here. We've got a nice sort of healthy patch in the middle. Let's while we are here, let's check our park. See how we. Yeah, so this is another one. We're getting lots of visitors. I think this is people just use this as a huge cut through. So let's bump our prices up. Let's kind of draw back some of these expenses. I think we'll pop down over here. I think we're pretty good for everything else. We're good for our emergency services. We're good for our education at the moment. But I think what we'll do is, because these are historical buildings, I can't just delete them and they won't regrow. So as they're pretty much abandoned, I've got no problem with removing them from the games. Let's place down our post office. It's in a central location, which is good. So yeah, let's move on to the next build. So this episode here, when we expanded Coleridge, a new high street and town centre, is the most viewed on my channel. You guys seem to enjoy it. I think that was probably because it was a bit more of a tutorial placing down assets, and I think by having these buildings on the corners and things like that, it's made it, gives it quite a bit of character rather than just zoning things down, because then, you know, as I mentioned before, you get kind of buildings that you don't really like, that don't go well together. But for me, this feels authentic. Of course, you're never too far from its industrial heritage. So for me, that works well. And I do like these European buildings. I think they've got to be pretty much one of my favourite ones in the game. Apart from the modern stuff, obviously that's got some great new stuff in the content creator packs. But yeah, this fits the vibe. We merged in a seaside resort building here, which kind of, I said at the time, it's like lines to be like a station building. And of course, we've got our station behind, which again is getting utilised pretty good, which is good to see. So I think it went well with the asset placement on the corners. I did change that to make it a bit more vanilla friendly, and I placed some pathways through as I've done the detailing session. So it's all walkable. We can see there's a lot of activity. So yeah, that was probably one of my favourite builds so far. And then as we move further out, we come into a bit of our suburban area, and you can see how the kind of skyline just decreases as we move over. But nevertheless, this was a fun build. This is our second high street, our busiest spot. We've got all our services down here. I added in a few more of our seaside resorts because they kind of felt a little bit administrative, council building sort of thing importance. We've got a medical clinic. We're pretty good. Our facilities over here are pretty good. Got another high school. I guess this will grow. I guess people are pretty much probably leveled up quite. Yeah, we've got a bit of room to grow. I don't like that one at all. Yeah, we're getting quite a bit of usage on the park, which is good to see. I'm just going to bump these prices up simply just to cover some of the expenses. Education. Yeah, I think I need to focus on. I think we will do a university build at some point. Maybe that's next. I'll add it to the list. But yeah, I've got a few ideas coming up, which is going to be pretty exciting because we're going to move on with the time period. We're going to get some other builds. I'm going to do a bit of research and see kind of what was going on around this time, and hopefully I can capture that in our series. So moving on to our steel building, our steel factory facility, whatever you want to call it. This has got the basis down. We've got our lines, cargo lines in. We've got our building operating. So that was pretty successful. I say successful and then the building decides to close down. But yeah, I think that's to do with the raw products. No, not enough special goods. We need some metals, but I've got a metal resource over here, but I might try filling it up and see if that can help, because that kind of cuts in and out. We make good money off of it, but it's no good if it just sort of kind of cuts in and out. So yeah, so that was a fun build. We've got our rail yard over here. Of course, this is not functional, but it all adds to the assets. So I'm pleased how that turned out. And then we've got our iron ore storage. You'd imagine they'd kind of just sort of take that straight into here and turn it into steel or whatever they're doing. But yeah, that kind of it works well. We've got a little bit of space to work with. Finally, our rubbish has emptied out, so we've got a little bit of space that we can turn this into some more heavy industrial. And of course, over the water here, we've got our most recent build, a water treatment facility. So on the whole, we're in a good spot. We have lost a few people. I mean, I did take out some housing, but hopefully we can focus on education. We can focus on some expansion. I've done something with the electric. Once we get some buildings in, our electric will hook back into our other buildings, then create the circuit again. But on the whole, I think we've come quite far. We're definitely progressing into the more modern builds. Maybe some of you will probably enjoy that more. Maybe some of you like the kind of slow progression that we've done. But I think for me, it was all about just building up a storyline and trying to get people involved where I can. So yeah, this series is still going strong, and I want to keep building and keep going with it. And of course, how can I forget, we've got our botanical garden build over to the far hand side of Brookshore. This one was, I knew it had to be included in the kind of Victorian era, what with a lot of like gardening was kind of like a national pastime, but we had the assets to play with. We got the, you know, the conservatories, like you see these are like Kew Gardens, things like that. And of course with the Seaside Resort DLC, we got the, like this one reminds me of like a stately home with like the bedrooms on sort of like eastern right wing of the building, things like that. So it had to go in. It was nice to use the assets. We got some great looking assets in here. And the Sims seem to like it. I think we're doing pretty well. Olive City Park, I must rename that. But we're getting a nice bit of income. I might, you know, cheese it a little bit and boost it up a bit more, 'cause we are getting the visitors, but you know, why not? But yeah, it was a fun build. It was probably the most detailed build I've put in the game so far. So yeah, there's some great views, and I'd imagine we're going to have some more building up in the Skyline as we progress. If you've not seen any of these individual episodes, feel free to have a look. I've got a playlist down in the description. And of course, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. As I say, it was just more of a nostalgia kind of going over the sort of places we built. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it here. I'll catch up with you in the next one, and of course I'll leave you with some views around town. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Bye bye.